The first round of these NBA playoffs continues on this Friday, April the 21st. Busy night tonight, 3 games on tap. I will be involved in all 3, so let's see if we can make a little bit of money, shall we? Let's start in Chicago, where the Bulls host the Boston Celtics. Chicago, a 2-point favorite at Betsafe, 207 the total in this game. Now, this has been the biggest surprise thus far in these playoffs. The 8-seed Bulls with a 2-0 lead on the 1-seed Celtics. Chicago really physically dominating this series, pushing around the Boston front court. They have controlled the glass in the first 2 games. And rebounding, probably the Celtics' biggest weakness, but still, it's been surprising just how easy a time Chicago has had of it. I mean, Robin Lopez looking like a poor man's Bill Russell so far in this series. And now the series returning to Chicago, and it looks like the public has abandoned the Celtics. Not surprising after all, this Boston team just 3-9 against the spread in their last 12 games. They've been a bad team to back lately. And the public at Betsafe and elsewhere heavy on Chicago here in this Game 3. But, you know, in the NBA playoffs, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in what we just saw. You know, X team is playing really good, or this game played out this way, and it's difficult to imagine it playing out any other way. And remember, each game is its own universe. And obviously these coaches make adjustments after every game. In Boston, they were the 1 seed for a reason, and Chicago, a deeply flawed team. The Bulls lost 41 games. They have issues, and most of their issues are on the offensive end of the floor. Chicago, not a good shooting team. They were 25th in the NBA this year in field goal percentage, 24th in three-point percentage. Only the Phoenix Suns and the Minnesota Timberwolves made fewer three-point shots per game this season than the Chicago Bulls. So look, the Bulls, a cold shooting team. I mean, Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade is their starting backcourt, and they also start Robin Lopez. So there's 3 non-shooters in their starting lineup. And yes, I know Wade made some outside shots towards the end of Game 2, but I'll tell you what, Wade has looked a step slow to me in this series. He's not having as easy a time creating his own shot as usual, so I'm not sure he's quite himself yet. Look, Chicago's cold shooting is going to show up at some point in this series. Mark my words. I mean, this was a season-long issue for the Bulls. They're just not going to run away and hide many times like they did in Game 2 with guys like rookie Paul Zipser catching fire off the bench. That's not going to happen all the time. And the Celtics, an excellent defensive team, and they're also very versatile on the offensive side. They do need to figure out something to do as far as this rebounding issue. But, you know, they rebounded the ball a little bit better in Game 2 than they did in Game 1. And you can bet that Brad Stevens is going to have something up his sleeve, juggling the minutes maybe of Amir Johnson, Tyler Zeller, Kelly Olynyk. They might need to get a little bigger. Al Horford right now, the only guy who's really doing work, the only guy on that Boston front court, Horford with 11 rebounds in the last game. I mean, Amir Johnson played just 9 minutes, just 2 rebounds in 9 minutes. And he's usually the type of guy who does a lot of the dirty work for the Celtics. So look, I think Brad Stevens will have a plan here. And as we said, I'm just not sure. Despite them winning 2 games in Boston, I'm not yet sold on the Chicago team. I saw them too much throughout the regular season, have real trouble to score. Wouldn't surprise me if they hit a cold stretch here in the next couple of games. I think the Celtics might be a good play here as a 2-point underdog, backs firmly up against the wall. This will be a real test for this Boston team. This is a must-win situation. I do expect them to get the job done. I like Boston +2 in that one. Moving on now to Oklahoma City, where the Thunder host the Houston Rockets. OKC, a 3-point favorite at Betsafe, 224 the total here. Houston winning Game 2, 115-111. The Thunder really controlled that game throughout until the fourth quarter. They just could not stay with the Rockets. Houston just has too much firepower for this. Excuse me. The Rockets just have too much firepower for this OKC team. We said that going into the series. This series has treated us well so far. We've won on both games, backing the Rockets in Game 1 and backing OKC in Game 2. But look, I think Houston's going to win this series. As we said, they just have too much firepower for this Thunder team. Yes, Russell Westbrook's a great player. 51 points and a triple-double in Game 2, but he missed 14 shots in the fourth quarter alone. Just didn't have any help. I mean, you couldn't blame him for taking it upon himself in the fourth quarter. There didn't appear to be anybody else on the Thunder's team who was eager to take shots and who was making open shots. I mean, Victor Oladipo, probably the second best offensive player for the Thunder, and he was very quiet in Game 2. He's been very quiet in this series. Doug McDermott did come off the bench to make 3 threes. Wouldn't surprise me if he got some more action here these next couple of games, but he is a defensive liability, and the Rockets can hurt you from so many places. We know all about James Harden, but then you saw in Game 2, Eric Gordon and Lewis Williams both come off the bench. They both made 8 of 14. I mean, it's the type of firepower that the Thunder just lack. That being said, the Thunder did a couple of things in Game 2 that we thought they were going to do, and that's why they were able to make a game of it. They did out-rebound the Rockets. It was very surprising in Game 1 to see all the success that Houston had, getting, 14 or 15 offensive rebounds, something like that. We mentioned OKC, the single best rebounding team in the NBA throughout the regular season, and they reestablished their dominance in that area in Game 2. And also, we mentioned it was flukish how the Thunder scored just 33 second-half points in Game 1. Russell Westbrook alone, you would figure, could go for nearly that many and a half. And as we said, he went for 51 in Game 2. But as we said after Game 1, there was a better chance of the Thunder scoring more than 33 in one quarter in Game 2 than there was of them scoring 33 or fewer in a half. And indeed, they scored 111 points. Again, the Rockets allowed 109.6 points per game in the regular season, 26 in the NBA in points allowed. They have too many poor defensive players getting heavy minutes on that team for them to ever be a good defensive team. So when you're playing the Rockets, yes, they're going to score a lot. You need to score a lot too. And we did see the Thunder put up 111 in Game 2. So they shorted up in those two areas. Really, all they needed to win that game was a little bit of help offensively from somebody other than Russell Westbrook. They needed one of their role players to step up, and they did not get it. But now the Thunder return home. And we know that role players, young guys in the NBA, they always seem to play better at home in the postseason. It's just one of those things year after year. You say, why do teams have a home court advantage? And really the best thing you can say is, well, it seems like a team's role players seem to play better, and their young guys seem to play better at home. And this is true a lot of the times. And OKC, they played a lot better at home this season than they did on the road. The Thunder 28-13 at home, but they were a sub-500 team on the road. So look, OKC returning home now. I think they will get some more production from some guys not named Russell Westbrook. Houston, a very inconsistent team throughout the season. Even heading into these playoffs, they were 4-5 in their last 9 regular season games. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the Rockets didn't quite bring the intensity in this one that they did in the first 2, and maybe didn't even match the Thunder's intensity. I'm sure the Thunder going to really come out and bring it here in front of their home crowd. So I think the Thunder are going to win this game. I do not think they're going to win the series, but I think they're going to win this game and cover the 3-point number. I am on OKC there. Final game I'll be involved in on this Friday, the late game, LA Clippers going to Utah to face the Jazz. Clippers a 1.5-point favorite at Betsafe, 197 the total in this game. LA won Game 2, 99-91 to even this series up at a game apiece. Look, Utah still without Rudy Gobert. That is a huge problem for them because this Jazz team is not good offensively. 28th in the NBA in points scored throughout the regular season. Of course, they failed to reach 100 points in the first 2 games against the Clippers. I mean, right now, this Jazz team, they really need a good game from a guy like Joe Johnson or Rodney Hood off the bench to compete with a team like the Clippers. And they got it in Game 1, of course. Joe Johnson, the big performance in that game. But LA, especially without Rudy Gobert, look, the hope for the Jazz in this series, they're a great defensive team, we know that. And the hope for this series, they were going to kind of junk it up, bring LA to their level, play great defense. And in a way, they've done that. The Clippers, they haven't reached 100 points yet in this series either. They scored 99 in Game 2, but they have not yet cracked the 100-point barrier. But Utah, not as good defensively without Gobert, and the Clippers have a lot of room to improve. We saw in Game 2, even though they put up 99 points, J.J. Redick and Jamal Crawford, their best 2 shooters, were both ice cold. Those guys combined to go 5 for 19 from the floor, 0 for 7 from three-point range. We are not going to see that very often from J.J. Redick and Jamal Crawford. And if you're betting on that to happen here in Game 3, I think you might be sorely disappointed. So I think the Clippers are just better than the Jazz right now, especially with the Jazz without Rudy Gobert. Maybe their best all-around player. We mentioned the Clippers, maybe the hottest team in the NBA heading into these playoffs. They had won 7 straight and 11 of 13. Yes, they let Game 1 get away. Again, big performance from Joe Johnson and others for this Utah Jazz team. But right now, I think the Clippers, the better team, even though this game is in Utah, I think the Clippers should be able to pull out this win. Their starting 5, who are getting heavy minutes right now, just more experienced, better offensively than what Utah is rolling out. So I like LA minus 1.5 there. There you have it. Those are my thoughts on this Friday, April the 21st. I like the Boston Celtics to go into Chicago, pick up a big win. I like Boston +2 there. I like the Oklahoma City Thunder to cover the 3-point number at home against the Houston Rockets. And I like the LA Clippers to go on the road and cover the 1.5-point number in Utah. Folks, I wish you best luck, whatever you decide to do tonight, just so long as your interests don't conflict with my interests. Enjoy the games.